Multiplayer modes give you the chance to play a video game with actual other human beings, although I wouldn't call all of the behaviour I've seen human per se. But sometimes our wishes to play a multiplayer are stymied by the very modes that would have allowed it getting cancelled during development. Some of these deleted multiplayer modes sounded brilliant, some sound absolutely bonkers, but what they all have in common is that we'll never get to play them. Dang. Pour one out for these cancelled multiplayer modes.
Anyone who's played Portal will have spent plenty of time thinking up real-world applications for the game's sci-fi portal technology, like one portal at the top of my large intestine and another at the bottom of the McFlurry machine.
You wouldn't even get to taste it.
I don't want to taste it, I want it to fill my large intestine. Look, can we move on? Portal developer Valve clearly also spent a lot of time thinking about the potential of portals, so much so that, wouldn't you know it, sequel game Portal 2 was originally going to include a multiplayer mode that was a cross between Portal and Ball Sports. You could call it Balltal! We can workshop the name. Actually, this mode was known as Spite Your Neighbour, was functional during Portal 2's development, and was described by Portal 2 writer Eric Walpole as Speedball meets Portal. Speedball, if you will. No, it's getting away from me. The mode would have involved teams trying to move a ball from one end of a court to another using, what else, portals. Presumably with all the frenetic, physicsy nonsense that implies, as chucking objects through space-time is one of the main things you do in the Portal games. As well as portaling balls around, you would have been able to interfere with opposing players by dropping portals under them, which sounds frankly hilarious, and also, to be honest, like the best video game imaginable. So why the hell are we not all competing in or spectating pro Balltal matches right now? Well, according to Valve, this mode wasn't good actually, it was bad. Speaking to GameSite 1UP, Walpole said, "It quickly became apparent that while it's fun for about 2 seconds to drop portals under people and things like that, it quickly just evolves into pure chaos." Instead, it opted for a co-op mode where players work together to solve puzzles, a mode that, Walpole reasoned, was just a much more rewarding path. Which on the one hand is a reasoned decision you have to respect, but on the other I'm still thinking about what I would have called my Portal 2 ball sports team. I'm thinking the weighted companion Cubs. Go Cubs!
If there's one thing that Doom Eternal never needed, it's any more demons. Yeah, that feels like enough demons to me. But we reckon we would have changed our tune had this next cancelled multiplayer mode ever become real. When 2020's Doom Eternal was first shown to the world at QuakeCon 2018, one huge new feature teased for this gore-soaked sequel was a so-called invasion mode. This mode would have added at least one new demon to your campaign of bloodshed and dismemberment. Because it was going to be a multiplayer mode that let real players invade your single-player game, playing as a demon, to try and kill you. Dark Souls fans, we see you with your hands up. Please sit down. Indeed, the concept of other players having the power to jump into each other's games to duel to the death is very much exemplified in From Software's rock-hard RPG series. But it's an idea we would have loved to see Doom Eternal pinch, because frankly, when so many things are trying to kill you at once, what's one more human-controlled demon? Or should we say several human-controlled demons, because that's what Invasion Mode was going to feature. As well as squad-based raids on a Slayer's single-player game, developer id Software confirmed players would have the choice whether to be invaded or not, but they clearly hoped you would leave the setting on so that other players could add a delicious spoonful of chaos to each other's campaigns.
We're really excited about Invasion, and you can look forward to a lot more on this down the road.
Unfortunately, what was down the road was the novel coronavirus. Not sure if you've heard of that one. Invasion was supposed to be added to Doom Eternal after launch, but in the summer of 2021, id Software said remote working as a result of the pandemic had slowed development and cancelled the mode entirely, in favour of a single-player horde mode.
can't keep this up forever!
Doom Eternal does feature a slightly more traditional battle mode multiplayer deathmatch, so isn't entirely bereft of the ability to blast actual other players into chunks of gore. But we have to mourn Invasion mode, especially having seen how cleverly implemented the idea has been in other games, like Deathloop, where the sudden appearance of a player-controlled Juliana turns a single-player campaign into a deadly game of multiplayer cat and mouse, where victory goes to whoever is boldest, bravest, and keeps the coolest head.
Oh yeah?
So not Luke then.
Mario Sunshine is perhaps the most divisive of the 3D Mario games. Some people love it, other people don't know what the hell they're talking about. No, seriously, to be fair, not everyone is a fan of this community service-centric tropical platformer, which sees Mario strapped into a pressure washer to clean up graffiti on the sun-drenched Isle Delfino. But what would certainly have made the game more interesting, or even more interesting depending on your perspective, is if Nintendo hadn't cancelled Mario Sunshine's multiplayer mode. Evidence that Mario Sunshine was at one point going to have multiplayer can be found deep, deep within the game's code. Specifically in an unused camera function called SMS_is_multiplayer_map. When enabled through hackery, this causes the game's camera to zoom way out, which you have to imagine was in order to fit more than one player on screen at the same time. We can only speculate what this multiplayer mode would have looked like, but there are clues. For instance, if Shadow Mario is around, the buried camera functions will zoom to fit this frequently fought baddie on screen as well as Mario, so perhaps a second player would have controlled the shadowy ne'er-do-well. Perhaps in a versus mode, considering other code fragments exist that would have let Mario and Shadow Mario pick each other up, or it might have been for a planned co-op mode. And if so, well, it must have really sucked. Why? Because bear in mind that subsequent 3D Mario games did have co-op, and that it was, well, a little bit rubbish. In the Mario Galaxy games, the co-op player's main job was to wiggle the Wiimote and collect star bits, and in Mario Odyssey, player 2 could, control the hat a bit. Both those modes were considered good enough to make the final cut, however, so we can only imagine the Mario Sunshine version must have been a total disaster to not be included. If, however, Mario Sunshine had been the 3D Mario to nail co-op, well, just imagine. I mean, what would the detractors have to complain about then?
The repetitive boss fights, the large empty levels, the lack of finesse in the controls, and FLUDD is annoying?
Mamma mia.
Oh, what's that?
There you go, little miss. Cotton candy here. It's your cotton candy.
Bioshock Infinite's floating city of Columbia is a town that could use some tower defense. I mean, look at the tower that your mate Elizabeth lives in. It's got a big bird in it now. What a mess! But you probably wouldn't have expected Bioshock Infinite, the third installment in a traditionally story-driven series, to feature the kind of tower defense we're talking about. Namely, the genre that was huge about a decade ago, mostly on smartphones, where you upgrade towers to blow up increasingly hardcore waves of enemies. And yet, according to rumour at least, a tower defense mode is exactly what Bioshock Infinite was going to feature. In 2012, with Bioshock Infinite still in development, gaming site Kotaku cited anonymous sources close to the game who said Infinite was going to include a multiplayer co-op tower defense mode. In this mode, players would be shrunk down inside an old-timey arcade machine to fight waves of enemies who would roll out on tracks. But the decision was reportedly made to bin this intriguing feature, along with a 4-player co-op mode where you and 3 other players would smash your way through stages lifted from the single-player campaign. Creative director Ken Levine said, "We are experimenting with things, and only if they are good enough will we put them in the game," which strongly suggests these rumoured multiplayer modes perhaps didn't meet Levine's standards. There is still an arcade in the finished game, but unfortunately, instead of tower defense minigames, claw machines, or anything fun, it's mostly creepy puppet shows and propaganda robots.
To the sky Comstock bent his knee, and saw with holy prophecy, and Eden floating in the mist, by man forsworn, by heaven kissed.
Yeah, there's no chance this place has DDR, is there?
What a beautiful tradition. Tonight's city. And the afterlife. Ha ha!
be fair, this next cancelled multiplayer wasn't just a mode in Cyberpunk 2077, it was going to be a whole spin-off game for Cyberpunk 2077. And if you think that sounds overambitious, well, we are talking about Cyberpunk 2077. The enormously anticipated dystopian RPG from Witcher makers CD Projekt Red was first revealed in a teaser trailer as far back as 2013, with a promised release date of when it's ready, which I guess CD Projekt Red just give us a heads up when that is, yeah? Because, as you're probably already aware, when the much-anticipated Cyberpunk 2077 was finally released almost 8 years later in December 2020, it turned out to be buggier than a dune buggy convention, and with considerably more unintended nudity.
Oh gosh, you had to turn on a minute. Ah!
I mean, I assume. Never been to a dune buggy convention, maybe they get pretty rowdy. In the carnage and controversy of Cyberpunk's launch, you'd be forgiven for forgetting that this single-player game was intended to be followed with a significant multiplayer offering. One confirmed in September 2019 and described at the time by CD Projekt Red as a AAA release, due after 2021. But if you're thinking, hey, it's after 2021 now, then bad news, because several months after the game came out, CD Projekt Red nimbly re-strategized.
Previously, we hinted that our next AAA would be a multiplayer Cyberpunk game, but we have decided to reconsider this plan.
And so, while CD Projekt Red says it still plans to add online elements to its entire lineup of games, including Cyberpunk, the extremely ambitious-sounding AAA spin-off Cyberpunk multiplayer got canned, without us ever getting a whiff of what it might have been like. A straight-up deathmatch shooter? A GTA Online-style, massively multiplayer version of Night City? Make your guesses in the comments. We're thinking kart racer.
Dragon Age Origins is a game that screams single player, almost as loudly as it screams date Alistair.
I'll be standing over here until the blushing stops, just to be safe. You know how it is.
Alright, fine, we'll date him if you shut up about it. You might be very surprised then to learn that BioWare's beloved fantasy epic was, until quite far into development, going to feature a huge multiplayer co-op mode.
We do not wish any more of our people hurt.
Which is remarkable when you consider Dragon Age Origins is an 80-hour role-playing game with complex branching narratives, a staggering wealth of side quests, and nearly a dozen companions to recruit to your party.
Take your lectures elsewhere. They mean nothing to me.
And if you're wondering how a game like Dragon Age Origins could have possibly worked in co-op, well, so was BioWare. In a 2021 interview with TheGamer.com, Origins writer David Gader said the co-op mode would have featured a, quote, whole separate story and campaign, with other developers interviewed explaining that you would have played your character's origin story before the game threw you into matchmaking with other players for co-op RPG hijinks. Sadly, according to those who worked on Origins, the game engine was struggling to handle the extremely ambitious co-op mode, and the choice was made to cut multiplayer entirely in an effort to actually release the game on time. Dragon Age writer Jay Turner is quoted as saying, "There was a celebration in the streets at that point because multiplayer was causing all sorts of problems for single player, and those of us focused on the story got a lot of resources and freedom back." The work wasn't entirely wasted, however, because apparently the prototype for multiplayer storytelling built for Dragon Age Origins went on to form the backbone of the dialogue system in Star Wars The Old Republic, BioWare's 2012 MMORPG. And Dragon Age Origins became a celebrated single-player experience, so it's hard to regret the loss of the co-op mode. And this way no other players have to suffer watching me interact with Alistair. I will not be rushed.
Have you ever licked a lamppost in winter?
Oh, things are heating up.
Dark Souls 3 is already pretty dark. It even says dark in the title. And Dark Souls developer From Software clearly thought it was dark enough too, because a multiplayer mode that would have turned the gloomy world of Lothric even darker ended up getting cut from the game. This mode was never officially detailed, and the only clues to its existence lie buried deep within the game's code, but it seems likely it was going to offer players another way to do PvP, which, as we mentioned earlier, is the mechanic where you battle other players, or where you pop to the bathroom for 2 minutes and in the meantime another player waltzes into your world to effortlessly backstab you. Dang, almost had him. The deleted multiplayer mode would have involved using items called ceremony swords to plunge your game into what the game files call a Moonlight ceremony state. Despite never making it into the finished game, Soulsborne sleuth Lance McDonald was able to recreate this moonlit state using an alpha build of the game, and give us an actual glimpse of a Lothric plunged into darkness. Check the description of this video for a link to Lance's full deep dive, which suggests another cut item, the Ceremony Sword of Flame, would have let players invade the worlds of anyone who chose to put their own game into a moonlit state. The moonlit version of Lothric is highly reminiscent of early Dark Souls 3 screenshots that leaked to the know ahead of the game's release. And while we don't know how this multiplayer mode would have worked exactly, it seems likely it would have been a way to stage group battles, based on a third Hidden Ceremony Sword item that has the phrase Battle Royale in its description. But before you get too excited about 100 Dark Souls players backstabbing each other for a chicken dinner, know that the term Battle Royale in Japanese has been used in the series before to describe small-scale arena mode skirmishes, one of which did get added to Dark Souls 3 via DLC, albeit where you fight rival players in an ashen, featureless landscape rather than a beautiful moonlit city. All told, it's a shame Moonlight Ceremonies were deleted from the game, not least because maybe if they had made the final cut, everyone who enjoys PvP would be doing that, and not backstabbing me when I'm on the toilet. I don't think we need to see that clip again. No, 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 no!
So those are some cancelled multiplayer modes that you will never see. There was another multiplayer mode actually that we were going to be a multiplayer mode where Luke and I alternated on every single word in every single feature, but it was...
Game engine couldn't handle it.
Yeah, couldn't do it. And by game engine we mean James, who has to suffer do our editing and fix it all. There you go, James, he saved it.
Call him the game engine.
He's the game engine. The James engine. Video James. But if you enjoyed that video, please do give us a thumbs up. We also, if you would like to support us further, obviously subscribe, what you're doing if you haven't already, and we also have a Patreon if you would like to join in, where we have a Discord that you can join and ask us questions and hang out with other lovely folk. But in the meantime, we shall see you in the next video.